Imagine you are standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out over a vast ocean. Your mind races, wondering what might happen if you take the wrong step. If something goes wrong, you hesitate, you think, you question, you doubt. But what if all that thinking is keeping you from moving forward? What if, by overthinking, you're trapping yourself in a cage built by your own mind? Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, replaying a conversation from hours ago, analyzing every word, every gesture? Or maybe you're constantly planning for something in the future, imagining every possible outcome, but never taking action. Do you feel like your thoughts are spiraling, and you can't stop them from racing ahead? You're not alone. Overthinking is something we all struggle with at some point in our lives. But what if it's not just harmless daydreaming? What if overthinking is actually ruining your peace, your happiness, and even your future? Now, let me give you a simple example. Imagine you're walking through a crowded street, and you notice someone you know from afar. You wave at them, but they don't wave back. Immediately, your mind starts to race. Did I do something wrong? Do they not like me? Did I offend them somehow? Before you know it, you're caught in a spiral of unnecessary worry. The reality is, they might have simply not seen you. But in your mind, a small event becomes a big, complex problem, just because you overthought it. Welcome to Wisdom Woven, where we unravel the threads of wisdom that help you lead a peaceful and thoughtful life. Overthinking is more common than you might think, and it's a problem many of us face daily. But don't worry, we're going to explore this, and I promise, by the end of this video, you'll have the tools to escape its grasp. There are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% of you subscribe. So please, like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you. Now, let's dive deeper into the impact of overthinking and how it affects every part of our lives. The root of overthinking is understanding the mind's illusions. Overthinking doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's a product of the mind, and the mind has its own way of playing tricks on us. You see, the mind is constantly busy, constantly moving from one thought to the next, like a river that never stops flowing. It's as though we are not even in control, but instead, we are swept away by the current. This happens because our mind creates illusions, ideas that seem real but aren't. These illusions feed our overthinking, making it worse than it needs to be. Have you ever found yourself stuck in a thought loop? You start thinking about one thing, and suddenly, you're thinking about another, then another, until everything seems to connect in a way that feels important. But, in reality, it's just your mind creating a web of distractions. The mind loves patterns, and it gets excited when it starts making connections, even when those connections don't actually exist. Your thoughts begin to blur the lines between reality and illusion, making everything seem more complicated than it truly is. The root of overthinking lies in the mind's attachment to these illusions. The mind clings to ideas, stories, and worries because it believes they are important. It tells us that thinking about something over and over again will somehow make us more prepared or safer. But the truth is, overthinking doesn't protect us. It traps us. When we're overthinking, we're not living in the present moment. We're trapped in the past, replaying events that are already done, or we're worrying about the future, which has not even happened yet. This attachment is what Buddhism calls samsara, the endless cycle of suffering caused by clinging to things that are not real. We get stuck in our thoughts, believing them to be more significant than they are, and this keeps us from experiencing true peace. The more we hold on to these thoughts, the stronger they become, like weeds growing in the garden of our mind. Instead of letting go, we keep watering them, feeding them with our attention, and soon we find ourselves tangled in a mess of unnecessary thoughts. But what if you could see these thoughts for what they truly are? Nothing more than fleeting moments in time. In Buddhism, we learn that everything is impermanent. All thoughts, feelings, and experiences come and go. They don't stay. They arise and fade away, just like the weather changes from sunny to cloudy to rainy. But when we cling to these thoughts, we forget that they are temporary, and we begin to believe they define who we are. When we overthink, we allow our thoughts to control us. We believe that our worries are real, that our doubts are true, and that our fears are justified. But in reality, these thoughts are just passing clouds in the sky of our mind. They have no power over us unless we give it to them. The more we identify with them, the more we get lost in them, and the more we allow them to shape our reality. In Buddhism, one of the core teachings is that our suffering arises from attachment. Attachment to things, to people, and, importantly, to our thoughts. Overthinking is a direct result of this attachment. When we let our minds create stories, we start to believe them. We let our thoughts take over, convincing us that something is wrong, that we need to worry, that we need to plan for every possible outcome. But this is where the danger lies. We start to miss out on the beauty of the present moment because we're too busy being consumed by thoughts that have no real bearing on our lives. Think about it. How many times have you spent hours worrying about something that never even happened? How many times have you stressed over the what-ifs of life, only to find that they were just figments of your imagination? Overthinking pulls us out of the here and now. It takes us away from the life we're actually living and into a world that exists only in our minds. This is where the practice of mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness teaches us to see things as they truly are, not as we imagine them to be. It helps us observe our thoughts without getting caught up in them, to see them for what they are, just thoughts. And when we start seeing our thoughts for what they are, we can begin to loosen the grip they have on us. Instead of allowing our thoughts to control us, we can take a step back and watch them from a distance, as if we were observing clouds in the sky. The mind will always produce thoughts. That's its nature. But we don't have to identify with every thought that comes up. We can choose not to attach to them. Imagine a river flowing by. You can't stop the river from flowing, but you can choose not to dive into it. You can stand at the edge and watch the water pass by without being carried away. This is what mindfulness teaches us, to watch our thoughts without getting swept away by them. But detaching from our thoughts doesn't mean we stop thinking altogether. It doesn't mean we become mindless. Instead, it means we become aware of our thoughts, acknowledge them, and then let them go. We don't give them the power to control us. Overthinking loses its grip when we stop feeding it, when we stop attaching to it. The more we practice this awareness, the less power overthinking has. As you begin to understand the root of overthinking and how the mind creates illusions, you'll start to notice how often you've been trapped in these thought cycles. It's like a chain that holds you back, keeping you from moving forward, from being fully present in your life. The first step to freedom is recognizing that you don't have to believe every thought you have. They're just thoughts. They don't define you, and they certainly don't control you. The next time you find yourself overthinking, take a moment to pause. Notice the thoughts that are racing in your mind. Ask yourself, is this thought real? Is it helpful? And then, gently let it go. Let it drift away like a leaf floating down a stream. With practice, you'll begin to see how much lighter your mind becomes, how much more peaceful your life feels when you stop clinging to the illusions that your mind creates. The more you let go of unnecessary thoughts, the more space you create for the present moment. You'll find that, instead of being lost in a sea of overthinking, you're able to enjoy the simple joys of life, to experience the world as it is, without the filters of worry and doubt. And in that space, you'll find peace, true peace, the kind that doesn't depend on anything outside of you. Understanding the root of overthinking is the first step towards freeing yourself from it. The next steps involve learning to let go, practicing mindfulness, and realizing that your thoughts do not define you. They are not you. You are the observer, the witness, the one who watches the thoughts come and go. And in that space, you'll discover the power of living a life free from the chains of overthinking, attachment, and desire. Why overthinking keeps you stuck. As we dive deeper into the problem of overthinking, we must first understand the root cause that feeds this endless cycle: attachment and desire. When we hold on too tightly to something, whether it's an outcome, a person, or even a way of thinking, we create the perfect environment for overthinking to thrive. Attachment isn't just about physical things. It can also be emotional, mental, and even spiritual. It's a strong bond that tethers us to specific thoughts, situations, and expectations. And it's in these attachments that our minds get trapped. Imagine you're holding onto something with both hands, so tightly that your grip is starting to hurt. You can feel your fingers tightening around it, your mind obsessing over how to keep it. But what happens if you suddenly let go? At first, there's a rush of fear. You might feel as though you've lost something important, that you're now empty and unfulfilled. But in reality, letting go gives you freedom. It's the same with overthinking. When you hold on too tightly to your worries, your fears, or your desires, your mind becomes overwhelmed. The tighter you grip, the more trapped you feel. Overthinking thrives in a mind that is filled with attachment. Think about a simple decision you have to make. The more you attach yourself to a specific outcome, the more you begin to analyze every possible detail, every choice. Should you take the risk? What if it doesn't work out? What if it's the wrong decision? The more you ponder, the more anxious you become, and the cycle continues. But what if, instead of attaching yourself to the outcome, you let go of the need to control everything? What if you allowed things to unfold naturally, without constant analysis? In Buddhism, attachment is considered one of the main causes of suffering. This is because attachment often leads to desire, and desire, in turn, creates dissatisfaction. When we desire something, we are in a constant state of craving, never truly at peace with what we have. We think, if only I had that, or if only I could do this, or if only I was someone else. These desires fill our minds with endless distractions, pulling us away from the present moment and fueling overthinking. Attachment to the future is particularly powerful. We spend so much time thinking about what might be, constantly planning, hoping, and fearing the outcome of things that haven't even happened yet. We become obsessed with what could go wrong, trying to prepare for every possible scenario. This constant worry about the future keeps us trapped in our minds, never fully present in the now. We lose sight of the beauty of the moment, the very moment that could bring us peace, because we're so focused on what might happen next. The mind, when filled with desires and attachments, cannot find peace. It's like a storm constantly churning inside you, never allowing you to rest. Your thoughts become a whirlwind of what-ifs and what-could-bes, each one fueling the next. The truth is, the more you desire, the more you will overthink, and the less you will experience peace. The more you try to hold on to things, the more they slip through your fingers. But here's the key. If you can let go of your attachment, if you can stop clinging to outcomes, you will find a sense of peace that overthinking can never give you. This doesn't mean you stop caring about things or people. It simply means you allow things to be as they are, without constantly trying to control them. You let go of the need to obsess over every decision, every situation, and you begin to trust that everything will unfold as it should. Letting go doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice, one that requires patience and self-awareness. But with time, you can start to recognize when you're attaching yourself too strongly to a thought or a desire. When you catch yourself in the act of overthinking, remind yourself to step back, to pause, and to release the grip of attachment. Recognize that you don't need to have all the answers right now, and that it's okay not to control every outcome. Think of attachment as a chain that keeps you bound to a specific thought, a specific worry, or a specific expectation. When you try to pull away, the chain tightens, pulling you back in. But when you release the chain, you are free. The mind becomes clear, and overthinking fades away. You can breathe again. You can simply be. Buddhism teaches that attachment leads to suffering, and by letting go, we open ourselves up to the freedom of the present moment. We stop living in the past or future, and we begin to embrace the now. Overthinking becomes less of an issue when you aren't constantly trying to control everything. When you release the need for attachment, you make space for clarity, for calmness, and for the peace that comes with just being. Now, this doesn't mean you stop making decisions or planning for the future. It means you approach life with a sense of ease, knowing that not everything needs to be figured out right away. When you stop overthinking, you start living with a sense of trust in the process of life. You let go of the need for certainty and accept the uncertainty as a natural part of the human experience. The more you practice letting go of attachments, the more you'll begin to notice a shift in your mind. You'll no longer feel weighed down by constant thoughts of what could go wrong. Instead, you'll feel lighter, more at peace. The power of detachment will allow you to face challenges with a calm mind and a steady heart, knowing that you don't need to hold on to every thought or worry. You can simply let it go. Remember, attachment isn't just about physical possessions. It's about the mental and emotional ties that bind you to your thoughts. When you can release those ties, you'll find that overthinking doesn't have the power it once had. You'll be able to breathe freely, think clearly, and live in a state of calmness, no longer driven by the need to control every aspect of your life. So, the next time you find yourself trapped in the cycle of overthinking, ask yourself, what am I attached to? What do I feel the need to control? And then, gently, let go. You might be surprised by the sense of peace that follows. Overthinking may still come, but you won't be trapped by it. Instead, you'll be able to step back, observe, and find your way back to the calm center of your mind. The power of impermanence, letting go of mental chains. The mind is constantly in motion. It is like a river that never stops flowing, filled with thoughts that come and go. We try to hold on to certain thoughts, ideas, or emotions, believing that they define us, but the truth is, nothing lasts forever. The concept of impermanence, a core teaching in Buddhism, reminds us that everything is temporary. Everything, whether good or bad, will eventually change. Think about it for a moment. The good times in life don't last forever, but neither do the bad times. The moments of joy, the moments of sorrow, the victories, and the losses, none of them are permanent. They come and go. And yet, we often get trapped in the idea that everything should remain the same, that we should hold on to what we have, or even to what we've lost. But this is where suffering begins. Overthinking is the result of this attachment. We become attached to our thoughts, believing they are who we are, or that they will always be with us. But that's not the case. We do not need to hold on to them. They are not permanent. Just like clouds that drift across the sky, thoughts come and go. They are temporary, fleeting, and without substance. By holding on to them, we create suffering. We build a prison for ourselves, where every thought becomes a chain that binds us to the past or drags us into the future. When we accept that everything is impermanent, we begin to see life more clearly. We begin to let go of the need to control everything. We stop overthinking every little detail, trying to predict what will happen next. Instead, we embrace the flow of life, understanding that nothing stays the same. This acceptance of impermanence doesn't mean we stop caring or that we should stop making efforts in life. It simply means we stop clinging to outcomes, to expectations, and to fears. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from attachment. When we cling to things, whether they are material possessions, relationships, or even our own thoughts, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Things change, people change, and we change. Nothing is fixed. So, why should we hold on to things that will inevitably fade? When we let go, we free ourselves from the mental chains that bind us. Think about a tree in the autumn. The leaves turn colors and fall to the ground. The tree doesn't mourn the loss of the leaves. It doesn't try to hold on to them or stop them from falling. It simply lets them go, knowing that new leaves will grow in their place. This is the lesson of impermanence. We must learn to let go of what no longer serves us. The old thoughts, the old fears, the regrets, the worries, these are like the falling leaves. They come, they go, and we don't need to hold on to them. Overthinking is often a result of holding on to these passing thoughts. We get caught in the trap of wanting to control our emotions, our thoughts, and even the way the world unfolds. But the more we try to control things, the more we suffer. It's like trying to hold on to water in our hands. The tighter we grip, the more it slips away. Life isn't meant to be controlled. It's meant to be experienced. The more we let go, the more we open ourselves up to the present moment, where true peace resides. Imagine if you could stop overthinking. Imagine if you could simply accept that thoughts come and go, that emotions rise and fall like the tides of the ocean. What would your life be like if you stopped clinging to every little worry and fear? How much mental energy would you free up if you allowed things to pass without judgment? This is the power of impermanence. This is the freedom we gain when we stop overthinking and start living in the present. Overthinking traps us in the past, in the future. It prevents us from fully experiencing the present moment, where life is truly happening. When we understand that everything is temporary, we begin to let go of the need to control and instead start embracing the flow of life. We no longer need to hold on to every thought or emotion because we understand that they will pass. By letting go, we make room for new experiences, new opportunities, and new possibilities. Buddhist monks often practice mindfulness to help them embrace impermanence. By being present in the moment, they learn to detach from their thoughts and let go of the mental clutter. They don't get attached to the pleasant or unpleasant experiences of life. They simply observe, without judgment, allowing everything to come and go. This practice of mindfulness is not about stopping thoughts. It's about letting them come and go freely, without interference. It's about realizing that we are not our thoughts. We are the awareness behind them, the observer who watches them without attachment. The key to letting go of overthinking is to become more aware of our thoughts. We don't need to analyze or judge them. We don't need to hold on to them. We simply need to observe them as they arise and pass, like clouds drifting across the sky. The more we practice this, the less power our thoughts have over us. We stop being controlled by them and start living with more freedom, peace, and clarity. When we understand the nature of impermanence, we start to see the world with fresh eyes. We stop clinging to the past or worrying about the future. We begin to live fully in the present, where life is unfolding right before us. By letting go of overthinking, we allow ourselves to experience life as it truly is, unfolding in each moment, unpredictable, yet beautiful. So, next time you find yourself trapped in a spiral of overthinking, remember this. Everything is impermanent. Your thoughts, your worries, your fears, they will all pass. Don't hold on to them. Let them go. Let life flow through you, and you will find peace. Embrace the impermanence of life, and you will stop overthinking. You will begin to live with a freedom that comes from knowing that nothing lasts forever, except the peace that arises when we let go. Mindfulness, the Buddhist key to a peaceful mind. Mindfulness. It's a word we hear often, but do we truly understand its power? Imagine this. You're walking through a beautiful garden, surrounded by flowers and trees. The sunlight dances through the leaves, and a gentle breeze brushes your face. As you take in this peaceful moment, your mind begins to wander. You think about what you need to do later, what you didn't do yesterday, what might happen tomorrow. Suddenly, the peacefulness of the moment fades, and you're caught in a storm of thoughts. This is what happens when we let our minds drift away from the present. We become consumed by the past and future, forgetting the only moment we truly have, the now. But mindfulness, as taught in Buddhism, is about being fully present in whatever you are doing, without judgment, without distraction. It's about quieting the noise in your head and focusing on what is right in front of you. Think about how much of your day is spent in thought. You wake up thinking about what you need to do, then you eat breakfast while thinking about work. You drive to work, but your mind is elsewhere. By the time you get home, you realize you haven't truly experienced a single moment of your day. You've been too busy overthinking, too focused on things that have already passed or things that haven't happened yet. But mindfulness can change that. It's about training the mind to let go of unnecessary distractions, to be aware of the present moment without judgment. When you practice mindfulness, you begin to see the world around you more clearly. You stop living in a fog of thoughts and start living with intention, with purpose. It's not just about meditating on a cushion for an hour. Mindfulness can be practiced in every moment of your day. When you eat, truly taste your food. When you walk, notice the ground beneath your feet. When you speak, listen to the words before they leave your mouth. Mindfulness is the art of slowing down, of paying attention to life as it happens, rather than rushing through it, always thinking of what's next. But how do we get there? How do we silence the constant chatter of the mind and bring ourselves into the present moment? It starts with a simple awareness, a recognition that we are thinking, and a decision to come back to the here and now. When a thought arises, instead of chasing it or judging it, simply notice it. I am thinking about the past, you might say, and then gently bring your attention back to the present. It's that simple, though not always easy. The mind will wander, and that's okay. The key is to bring it back, again and again. As you practice mindfulness, you'll begin to notice the world in a new way. Colors may appear brighter, sounds clearer, and feelings more intense. You'll experience moments more fully because you are no longer lost in thought. The simple act of being present can transform your entire experience of life. But what about the worries, the fears, the doubts? They will still come. They are a natural part of the human experience. But with mindfulness, You learn not to get caught in them. You can watch your thoughts without becoming them. You can acknowledge your fears without letting them control you. In this way, mindfulness doesn't remove the problems of life, but it changes the way you relate to them. Through mindfulness, we begin to cultivate a deep sense of peace. Not because the world is perfect or without challenges, but because we stop resisting life as it is. Instead of fighting against the present moment, we embrace it, just as it is. This is the heart of Buddhist teaching. To accept what is, without judgment, without attachment, without overthinking. Over time, mindfulness becomes a way of life. It becomes the lens through which you see the world, the foundation upon which you build your actions and decisions. It is not a quick fix or a magic solution, but a steady practice that brings profound peace over time. With mindfulness, you learn to live in harmony with yourself and the world around you. There will be times when you slip up, when your mind races ahead of you, when overthinking takes over. But mindfulness isn't about perfection. It's about noticing and then returning to the present. Every time you come back to the now, you strengthen your ability to be mindful. The beauty of mindfulness is that it's available to you right now. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment or the perfect conditions. You can practice mindfulness while you walk, while you sit, while you talk. It's not about setting aside time to meditate, though meditation is a powerful tool for mindfulness. It's about bringing the awareness of the present moment into every part of your day. And as you begin to practice mindfulness, something incredible happens. You start to feel a deep sense of peace, a stillness that doesn't depend on external circumstances. You stop trying to control everything, and instead, you learn to simply be. This peace is always available to you, hidden behind the clouds of overthinking. All you have to do is step into it, moment by moment. This is the gift of mindfulness, a life not controlled by the past or the future, but a life fully lived in the present. It's a life of clarity, of purpose, of peace. It's a life where overthinking no longer holds you back. And it's a life that you can begin to cultivate right now. So take a deep breath. Notice how you feel in this moment. Notice the space around you. And remember, the key to peace is already here. All you have to do is be mindful, in this moment, in the next, in the next. This is the path of mindfulness, the Buddhist key to a peaceful mind. How to observe thoughts without getting trapped. Have you ever tried to watch your thoughts like a distant observer? To simply let them pass by, without getting caught up in them, without reacting to them? It sounds easy, but in reality, it's one of the hardest things to do. Our minds are like a river, constantly flowing, with thoughts rushing by like fast-moving water. The problem is, we often jump into the river, and before we know it, we're swept away by the current, carried far from where we started. The first step in learning how to observe your thoughts without getting trapped is to realize that you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are simply events in your mind, like clouds drifting across the sky. The sky doesn't become the cloud, and you are not your thoughts. You, as a person, are the one who is watching. But too often, we forget this, and we merge with our thoughts, losing sight of the fact that we have the power to step back and just watch. Imagine you're standing in front of a busy road. Cars are rushing by, honking, speeding, and you can feel the vibrations of the road beneath your feet. But what happens when you step back a little and watch from a distance? You see the road for what it is. You see the cars rushing, but you don't feel their urgency. You don't feel the stress they carry. You simply watch, from a place of calm. This is what it's like to observe your thoughts. Now, here's the challenge. How do we stop ourselves from getting lost in our thoughts? How do we avoid jumping into the river of our own mind? The answer lies in mindfulness, the practice of being aware of the present moment without judgment. When you practice mindfulness, you stop fighting your thoughts, and you simply allow them to come and go. You don't need to change them. You don't need to analyze them. You simply observe. It's like sitting by a riverbank, watching the water flow. Sometimes, the water is calm and peaceful. Other times, it's rough and wild. But no matter what, it keeps moving. And so do your thoughts. They may come in the form of worries, anxieties, doubts, or distractions, but like the river, they will pass. The key is to stop trying to hold on to them, to stop clinging to every thought that passes by. But how do we practice this? One of the simplest ways is to start with your breath. Focus on your breathing, the sensation of the air entering your nose, filling your lungs, and then leaving your body. The more you focus on your breath, the more you'll begin to notice how your thoughts appear. Some will be loud, others soft. Some will seem important, others completely random, but none of them define you. When you first try this, your mind will resist. Thoughts will flood your mind, pulling you in every direction. You may start thinking about something you need to do later, or something that happened yesterday. But every time your mind wanders, gently bring your focus back to your breath. Don't judge yourself for getting distracted. Just return your attention to the present moment over and over again. The beauty of this practice is that it teaches you to detach from your thoughts. You begin to realize that thoughts come and go, like waves on the ocean. Some are small and gentle, others are big and forceful, but none of them stay forever. When you practice observing your thoughts without reacting to them, you start to realize how much mental space you've been wasting by getting caught up in them. You also start to feel lighter, freer. You start to experience life more clearly, without the constant noise of unnecessary thinking. There's a famous teaching in Buddhism that says, the mind is like a monkey, swinging from branch to branch, never stopping. This is how most people's minds operate, constantly jumping from one thought to the next, unable to settle on anything for too long. But when you learn to observe your thoughts, it's as if the monkey begins to sit still. It starts to relax, and for the first time, it's at peace. The same is true for your mind. When you stop jumping from thought to thought, you begin to experience stillness, clarity, and calm. This doesn't mean that your thoughts will disappear. In fact, they'll probably keep coming. But what will change is your relationship to them. Instead of being dragged along by your thoughts, you'll be able to let them come and go without getting swept away. You'll be able to sit calmly, watching the river of your mind flow by, without feeling like you have to get in and swim. The more you practice observing your thoughts, the easier it becomes. It's like training a muscle. In the beginning, it may be hard to sit still, and your mind might feel like it's racing. But with time, you'll start to feel more comfortable with the process. You'll become better at recognizing when you're getting caught up in your thoughts and gently guiding yourself back to the present moment. One of the key insights from Buddhism is that suffering comes from attachment. We suffer because we hold on to things, whether it's material possessions, relationships, or even thoughts. When we attach ourselves to our thoughts, we get lost in them. We identify with them, and they begin to control us. But when we practice observing our thoughts without attachment, we begin to break free from their grip. This practice doesn't just help you manage overthinking. It also helps you experience life with more presence and awareness. You'll find that you start to appreciate small moments more deeply. The sound of birds singing, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the taste of your food. When your mind isn't constantly cluttered with distractions, you can experience life as it truly is, in all its beauty and simplicity. Remember, observing your thoughts is a skill that takes time to develop. It's not something that happens overnight. But the more you practice, the more natural it will become. And soon, you'll realize that you've spent much of your life trapped in your own thoughts, thinking they were real, thinking they were you. But now, you know the truth. You are the one who observes, not the one who is caught. And this realization brings freedom. The next time you catch yourself overthinking, take a moment to pause. Breathe deeply and remind yourself that you are not your thoughts. You are the one who watches them, the one who can choose to let them go. With practice, you'll find that your mind becomes a calm and peaceful place, and overthinking will no longer hold you captive. In the end, the goal is not to stop thinking. The goal is to stop identifying with your thoughts. When you can observe your thoughts without getting caught up in them, you'll find that your mind becomes clearer, your decisions become wiser, and your life becomes more peaceful. And this is the true path to freedom. The role of meditation: rewiring the overthinking brain. Meditation. For some, it might sound like a distant concept, something reserved for monks in remote temples or spiritual seekers in faraway lands. But what if I told you that meditation is one of the simplest, most effective tools you can use to end the cycle of overthinking? What if, through just a few minutes of focused awareness each day, you could calm the storm of thoughts that endlessly whirl through your mind? It might sound too good to be true, but it's not. Meditation is a practice, a skill, and just like any other skill, It gets better with time and patience. Imagine for a moment you're standing in the middle of a busy street, surrounded by the noise of honking cars, chattering people, and the rush of everyday life. Your thoughts are just like that street, chaotic and loud, constantly pulling you in every direction. Overthinking happens when we allow these thoughts to take control, constantly distracting us, pushing us further away from the present moment. It's as if you're trying to find peace in the middle of a storm. The more you try to make sense of it all, the more overwhelming it becomes. Meditation is like stepping into a calm room, away from the chaos, where your thoughts are no longer the boss. When you sit down to meditate, you're not trying to escape from your thoughts, but rather, you're learning to observe them without reacting. It's as if you're watching a movie of your own thoughts, without getting emotionally caught up in it. The more you practice, the more you realize that you don't need to act on every thought that enters your mind. Not every thought requires a response. Not every feeling demands to be acted upon. Let me share something simple. Take a moment, right now, to close your eyes and focus on your breathing. Feel the air as it enters and leaves your body. Notice the rise and fall of your chest. Now, thoughts will still come. That's the nature of the mind. But instead of getting caught up in them, just let them pass by. Imagine them as clouds drifting across the sky. They are not you. They do not define you. They are simply passing through. This simple practice, done regularly, can start to change the way your mind works. It teaches your brain to be still, to not react automatically to every thought that pops into your head. And over time, the constant churn of overthinking begins to slow down. You begin to understand that you don't have to follow every mental impulse. You don't have to go down every rabbit hole of worry or doubt. You can choose which thoughts you give your attention to. What you'll find, after consistent practice, is that your mind becomes more like a calm lake. In the beginning, the water might be turbulent, reflecting all the chaos around it. But with practice, the lake becomes still, clear, and peaceful. The storm inside your mind begins to settle. You begin to experience life as it is, without the heavy layers of overthinking clouding your judgment and peace of mind. You see, overthinking happens when we resist the present moment. Our minds are constantly in the past or the future, replaying events or worrying about what might happen. But when you meditate, you train yourself to return to the present moment. You anchor yourself to what's real, right now, and as you do that, you stop giving so much power to thoughts that do not serve you. When you meditate, you also develop a quality called mindfulness. Mindfulness is simply being fully aware of what is happening right now, without judgment. It's about observing your thoughts, your feelings, and your surroundings with a sense of curiosity, not attachment. You begin to notice how your thoughts influence your emotions and actions. And with mindfulness, you start to realize that you don't have to act on every thought or feeling. You can simply observe, let go, and move forward. The beauty of meditation is that it's not about achieving perfection. It's about progress. It's about becoming more aware of the present moment and slowly breaking free from the endless cycle of overthinking. Every time you sit down to meditate, you're rewiring your brain. You're teaching it to slow down, to pause before reacting, to simply be. And in that stillness, you find the freedom to live your life more peacefully, more intentionally, and more joyfully. This doesn't mean that you'll never have a racing thought again. Meditation doesn't promise to eliminate thoughts altogether. But what it does offer is a way to deal with them. It gives you the space to choose your response instead of being dragged along by every passing thought. Over time, this practice builds mental resilience, making you less susceptible to overthinking, less susceptible to the worry that clouds your peace of mind. Now, this might sound simple, and it is. But like any other habit, it requires dedication and consistency. It's not something that happens overnight. But with patience, you'll begin to notice the shift. The shift from being a slave to your thoughts to becoming the master of your mind. Meditation is the key that unlocks the door to peace. It's the tool that rewires the overthinking brain, allowing you to live with clarity, purpose, and calm. In the beginning, it might feel uncomfortable. You may find your mind wandering, and you might feel frustrated. But don't give up. Every time you bring your focus back to your breath, every time you return to the present moment, you are strengthening your mind. And like any skill, the more you practice, the better you get. Eventually, your mind will become more still, more peaceful, and less reactive. Meditation is the process of returning to yourself, of reconnecting with the part of you that is already calm, already at peace. It's not about creating peace from scratch, it's about rediscovering it. And once you start to experience the peace that comes with meditation, you'll realize that overthinking has no place in a mind that is already at rest. So, take a moment today to sit in silence. Breathe deeply. Let your thoughts come and go without judgment. Let them pass like clouds in the sky. With each breath, you'll find yourself returning to the present moment, and with each breath, you'll be one step closer to ending the cycle of overthinking. Remember, meditation is not a destination, but a journey towards a mind that is calm, clear, and free. And as you continue on this path, you'll begin to understand that you are not your thoughts. You are the observer. You are the one who chooses what to focus on. And that is true freedom. The illusion of control. Why overthinking solves nothing. Overthinking is often born from the desire for control. We think that by overanalyzing every situation, we can somehow predict the future, solve problems before they arise, or protect ourselves from pain. But in reality, this constant need for control is a trap. It keeps us stuck in our minds, unable to enjoy the present moment or take meaningful action. Think about it. How many times have you found yourself worrying about something that hasn't even happened yet? You imagine all the possible ways a situation could go wrong, and in your mind, you already experienced the stress, the disappointment, the failure. But when the event actually happens, you realize that most of what you feared never came true. The overthinking didn't change the outcome. It only drained your energy and peace of mind. In Buddhism, there's a saying that everything is impermanent. This means that no matter how much we try to control a situation, it will never stay the same. Life is constantly changing, and no amount of overthinking can freeze it in place or force it to go the way we want. When we try to control everything, we ignore the truth that we are part of something much bigger than ourselves. We are like a single wave in the vast ocean of life. Trying to control the wave is futile, because the ocean will continue to flow regardless of our attempts. This need for control often comes from a deep-seated fear of uncertainty. We want answers, solutions, and guarantees because the unknown feels threatening. But the more we try to predict what will happen, the more we actually lose control over the very things that matter. We become so focused on future possibilities that we lose sight of the present moment, where real life is happening. The irony is that in trying to avoid the pain of uncertainty, we end up creating more pain for ourselves by holding on too tightly to our thoughts. Overthinking also feeds into our attachment to outcomes. We attach ourselves to the idea of success, approval, or safety, and when things don't go according to our expectations, we feel like we've lost control. But life doesn't work on our schedule. The more we cling to specific outcomes, the more frustrated we become when reality doesn't match our desires. Overthinking is a way of trying to control the uncontrollable, and in doing so, we make ourselves miserable. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine you are waiting for an important phone call, one that could change your life. Instead of patiently waiting, you start to overthink. What if they don't call? What if something went wrong? What if you miss the call? You keep checking your phone, replaying the scenarios in your mind. But all this overthinking only makes you anxious and restless. It doesn't bring the call any closer. It doesn't change anything. All it does is make the waiting harder. The truth is, whether the call comes or not is out of your hands. No amount of worry can control the outcome. This constant need to control also affects our relationships. We might overthink every word we say to others, wondering if we've said the right thing or if they'll think we're foolish. We replay conversations over and over, imagining how we could have said something differently. But in doing this, we miss the beauty of true connection. We lose the chance to be authentic because we are so caught up in the fear of being judged. The more we try to control how others perceive us, the more we create distance between ourselves and the people we care about. In Buddhism, the practice of mindfulness helps us to let go of this need for control. Mindfulness teaches us to observe our thoughts without getting caught in them. We don't need to react to every thought or feeling that arises. Instead, we can simply acknowledge it and let it pass. This doesn't mean we stop caring about what happens in our lives. It means we stop clinging to the outcome and trust that things will unfold as they are meant to. We stop fighting against the flow of life and begin to move with it. When we let go of the need to control everything, we open ourselves to the natural rhythm of life. We stop forcing things to happen and start allowing them to unfold in their own time. This doesn't mean we become passive or stop taking action. It simply means that we stop wasting energy on things that are beyond our control. We focus on the present moment, where our actions can truly make a difference, and let go of the mental clutter that overthinking creates. Another powerful lesson from Buddhism is the idea of non-attachment. Non-attachment doesn't mean that we don't care about anything. It means that we are not overly attached to specific outcomes or desires. When we let go of our attachment to control, we free ourselves from the mental burden that overthinking brings. We learn to be present with what is, rather than constantly worrying about what could be. This brings peace, clarity, and freedom. Overthinking is a natural response to the fear of uncertainty, but it doesn't have to control us. By learning to let go of our need for control, we can stop the endless cycle of worry and fear. We can begin to trust in the flow of life, knowing that we don't have to figure everything out ahead of time. The more we practice this, the more we realize that life is much simpler than we make it. We don't need to overthink it. We just need to live it. To stop overthinking, we must practice the art of surrender. This doesn't mean giving up or resigning ourselves to fate. It means accepting that there are things we can't change and that not everything is meant to be controlled. Life is a dance between effort and surrender. When we can balance these two, we begin to experience true peace. We let go of the need to control, and in doing so, we gain control over our own peace of mind. So, the next time you find yourself caught in the web of overthinking, take a moment to pause. Breathe deeply. Acknowledge the thoughts, but don't let them define you. Release the need for control and trust that everything will unfold as it should. When you stop overthinking, you open up space for clarity, peace, and true freedom. Detachment, the Buddhist art of freeing yourself from worry. The moment you learn to detach from the endless cycle of worry, you begin to experience true freedom. It's not about running away from your problems or pretending they don't exist. Detachment means letting go of the grip that your thoughts, emotions, and expectations have over you. It's the act of seeing things as they are, without attaching any extra meaning or judgment to them. Imagine you're holding onto a heavy stone in your hand. At first, it doesn't feel like much. It's just a stone. But the longer you hold it, the heavier it becomes. Eventually, your hand starts to ache. The stone, which once felt light, is now unbearable. This is exactly what overthinking does to the mind. It's like holding onto that stone, day after day, until the weight of worry becomes too much to bear. But detachment is like putting the stone down. You don't need to hold on to it any longer. You simply let it go. It's easy to become attached to our thoughts, to our feelings, to our expectations. We think that by worrying, we're somehow in control. But in reality, attachment to these things only causes more pain. When you let go of attachment, you start to see life in a clearer light. You begin to understand that everything, including your thoughts, is temporary. The anger you feel, the anxiety, the fear, it all comes and goes. Just like the weather changes, so do your thoughts and emotions. They are not permanent. The teachings of Buddhism tell us that attachment leads to suffering. It's because we cling to things as if they are ours to keep. But in reality, nothing in this world is permanent, not even your thoughts. When you understand that everything is in constant flux, you begin to relax. You realize that you don't have to control every moment or predict every outcome. Life is simply what it is. And the more you try to hold on to it, the more you end up suffering. When we are attached to the idea of how things should be, we become disappointed when life doesn't go the way we imagined. But if you let go of that attachment, you open yourself to the reality of what is. You stop fighting against what is happening right now. Instead, you accept it. This doesn't mean that you don't act. It simply means that you act without attachment to the outcome. Think about a river flowing gently downstream. The water doesn't cling to any rock, any leaf, or any obstacle in its path. It flows naturally, without resistance. If a rock stands in its way, the water doesn't get upset or angry. It simply flows around it. It's the same with your thoughts. When you detach, you stop struggling against your thoughts. You stop letting them control you. You allow them to come and go, just like the river flows around the rocks. Detachment also means letting go of the attachment to the past and the future. So often, we are caught in memories of what has happened or anxieties about what might come. We worry about past mistakes, replaying them over and over in our minds. Or we anticipate future problems that may never even occur. Both of these create unnecessary stress. But when you detach from the past and future, you free yourself to live fully in the present moment. The present is all you truly have. It's where life is happening right now. To detach doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging to outcomes. It means you stop thinking that you know what is best for your life. When you release your grip, you open yourself to a more peaceful existence. You allow things to unfold as they are meant to, rather than forcing them into your own narrow expectations. The Buddha taught that detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means you can still experience life, still engage with the world, but without becoming entangled in it. You can love deeply, but without the fear of losing what you love. You can work hard, but without attachment to success or failure. When you stop tying your identity to your achievements, your possessions, or your relationships, you can experience true freedom. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process. But with practice, you'll start to notice a shift. You'll begin to recognize when you're holding on too tightly to something, and you'll start to let go. In time, you'll become more peaceful, more present, and more content with what is. The worries that once felt overwhelming will no longer have the power to control you. The beauty of detachment is that it allows you to see things as they really are. When you're not clinging to an outcome, when you're not attached to a particular result, you can see the bigger picture. You can see the lesson in every situation, even in the difficult moments. Detachment helps you understand that everything is a part of your journey, a part of your growth. It's not something to fear. It's something to embrace. Detachment also helps you stop overthinking. When you are attached to every thought, every possibility, you get stuck in a mental loop that never ends. You're constantly trying to control what you can't. But when you detach, you let go of that need for control. You allow yourself to simply be. You allow yourself to exist without the pressure of your thoughts pushing you in 1,000 different directions. The more you practice detachment, the more you realize that life isn't as complicated as you once thought. It's not about holding on to everything, controlling every moment, or planning for every eventuality. It's about being present, being peaceful, and allowing things to unfold as they will. The less you try to control, the more you actually gain control over your mind and your emotions. You start to feel lighter, more at ease. In the end, detachment is the path to inner peace. It's the path to freedom from overthinking, from worry, and from suffering. It's the key to experiencing life in its fullness, without the burdens of attachment weighing you down. So let go. Release the grip that has been holding you for so long. Step into the calm that lies just beyond your thoughts. And in that peace, you will find the clarity you've been searching for all along. How to stay present and stop living in the mind. You are here, right now, but where is your mind? Is it in the past, replaying mistakes and regrets? Or is it in the future, worrying about things that haven't even happened? This is the trap that most people live in, the illusion of time created by their own thoughts. The mind keeps running, but life is only ever happening in this moment. If you do not wake up to this truth, you will spend your whole life lost in a dream, missing reality as it unfolds before you. Imagine you are drinking a cup of tea. The warmth of the cup touches your hands. The aroma rises. The first sip reaches your lips. But instead of experiencing it, you are thinking about an argument you had last week or a problem that might come tomorrow. You don't taste the tea. You don't feel the warmth. The tea is there, but you are not. This is how most people live, not in the world, but in their minds. If you are always living in the past or future, you are living nowhere. The past is gone. The future does not exist. What exists is this breath, this moment, this step. But the mind is restless, always running ahead or falling behind. It fills your head with endless thoughts, dragging you away from the life that is right in front of you. This is why you feel anxious, why you feel tired, why you feel lost. It is not life that is exhausting. It is thinking about life too much that drains you. Have you ever walked somewhere and realized you don't remember the journey? Your legs moved, your eyes looked, but your mind was somewhere else. You were lost in thought, missing the very experience of walking. This is what happens in life. Days, months, years pass by, but people do not feel them. They are not present. They are living inside their thoughts instead of inside their lives. The secret to peace is simple. Be here. Not in yesterday, not in tomorrow. Here, right now. Feel your breath. Notice your surroundings. When you eat, taste the food. When you walk, feel the ground. When you speak, listen to your own words. Do not let your mind pull you away from reality. Do not let it take you somewhere that does not exist. But the mind will resist. It will say, I need to plan. I need to prepare. I need to think about everything. No, you only need to live. Planning is useful, but endless thinking is a trap. Worrying about the future does not change it. Regretting the past does not fix it. The only place where life is happening is here, now. If you can master this, you will feel a lightness inside you that you have never felt before. People often say, I just want to be happy. But happiness is not in the future. It is not a reward for solving all your problems. Happiness is found in being fully present, in appreciating this moment as it is. If you are waiting for happiness, it will never come. If you believe happiness is somewhere ahead, you will always chase it but never catch it. But if you stop, breathe, and be here, you will find that happiness has always been with you. Overthinking takes you away from life. It creates problems that do not exist. It makes you worry about things that may never happen. It makes you relive pain that is already gone. It turns simple things into complicated ones. The mind is not like silence, because in silence, it loses control. But silence is where peace lives. If you can quiet your mind, even for a moment, you will see that life is already perfect as it is. Think of a still lake. When the water is calm, you can see clearly. But when the wind of thoughts disturbs it, the reflection is broken. The mind is the same. If it is always disturbed, you will never see the truth. But if you let it settle, clarity comes on its own. You do not have to force it. You only have to stop stirring the water. Some people believe they need to fix everything before they can be at peace. But peace does not come from fixing the outside world. It comes from fixing your relationship with the present moment. If you can accept this moment as it is, without running to the past or future, you will find a deep, unshakable peace. Let go of the illusion that you need to control everything. Life will unfold whether you worry about it or not. The tree does not stress about growing. The river does not worry about where it flows. They simply exist, in harmony with the present. Be like them. Flow with life, instead of resisting it. A great mistake people make is thinking that presence is something to achieve, something to reach. No, you do not need to go anywhere. Presence is already here. It is the simplest thing. But because it is so simple, the mind does not believe it. It wants something complicated, something to chase, something to struggle for. But presence is not a struggle. It is simply being here, fully. Even now, as you listen to these words, notice your breath. Feel the weight of your body where you sit. Observe the sounds around you. Just for a moment, let go of thinking. Just be. This is presence. This is freedom. This is life, happening right now. You do not need to fight your thoughts. You only need to stop giving them all your attention. When a cloud passes in the sky, do you try to stop it? No, you let it pass. Thoughts are the same. Let them come, let them go. Do not hold on to them. Do not let them carry you away. The mind is a tool, not a master. Use it when needed, but do not let it control you. A sword is useful in battle, but dangerous if you do not know how to hold it. The same is true for the mind. Learn to put it down when you do not need it. Right now, you have everything you need. The moment you are in is enough. The air in your lungs, the sky above you, the ground beneath you. There is nothing missing. The only thing missing is your presence. Stop searching. Stop waiting. Life is already here, waiting for you to wake up and see it. Practical Buddhist techniques to end overthinking for good. In a quiet corner of a temple, a Zen master sits cross-legged on a simple mat. The air is still, only the faint sound of wind rustling the leaves. A student approaches, troubled by the constant swirl of thoughts in their mind. "Master," the student says, "my mind never stops. I think too much about everything. How can I make it stop?" The Zen master smiles gently and replies, "The mind is like a wild horse. It gallops in every direction, uncontrolled. But with practice, you can learn to ride it." You see, overthinking isn't something that will just disappear overnight. It's a habit, a pattern that has become deeply ingrained in our minds over time. But just because it's a habit doesn't mean it can't be changed. In fact, Buddhism offers some powerful and simple techniques that can help calm the mind and stop the endless chatter. These aren't grand concepts or complicated rituals. They are practical tools anyone can use, even in the busiest of lives. One of the most powerful techniques is mindfulness. It's a practice that helps you become aware of your thoughts, but without getting caught in them. It's like standing on the shore of a river, watching the water flow by. You notice the thoughts as they come, but you don't try to grab them, change them, or even judge them. You simply observe. This kind of awareness allows you to create space between yourself and the endless stream of thoughts. You stop identifying with them. Instead of thinking, "I am my thoughts," you start thinking, "I am the one who observes my thoughts." Another powerful technique is the practice of meditation. Meditation isn't about making the mind empty. That's impossible. It's about training the mind to focus and remain still, even amidst the chaos. When you meditate, you sit quietly, focus on your breath, and let go of any distractions. When thoughts arise, and they will, you don't push them away. You simply acknowledge them and return to your breath. Over time, your mind becomes stronger, calmer. It's like a lake. At first, the water is choppy, full of ripples. But as you sit still, the water begins to settle, and eventually, the lake becomes clear. In Buddhism, there's also the practice of detachment. This doesn't mean that you stop caring about people or things. It means you stop clinging to them with fear, worry, or attachment. Overthinking often arises from our attachment to outcomes, our desire for control. We worry about what will happen in the future, we stress over what we said or didn't say, and we dwell on what others might think of us. But detachment teaches us that everything is impermanent. The thoughts, the worries, the fears, they all come and go. Nothing stays forever. By accepting this truth, you free yourself from the pressure to hold on to every thought, every feeling, every situation. You begin to realize that it's okay to let things flow. There's a Buddhist saying, "When the mind is calm, the lotus blooms." Overthinking clouds the mind, making it hard to see clearly. It's like fog in the morning. Everything looks hazy and uncertain. But when you practice mindfulness, meditation, and detachment, the fog starts to lift. You begin to see things as they are, without the distortion of unnecessary thoughts and worries. The clarity that comes from this peace of mind is the real power you've been seeking. But how do you start? The first step is to be patient with yourself. The mind has spent years developing patterns of overthinking, and these patterns can't be undone in a single moment. It takes time, practice, and gentle persistence. Start by taking small steps. Each day, set aside a few minutes to sit quietly and observe your breath. When thoughts arise, simply let them pass like clouds in the sky. Don't chase after them. Don't judge them. Just notice them and let them go. Another simple technique is to practice mindful walking. Go for a walk, but instead of letting your mind wander to the past or the future, focus on the present moment. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Notice the sensation of the air on your skin. Observe the colors and sounds around you. In those moments, your mind is not trapped in thought. It's immersed in the present. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes to stay in the moment, without getting lost in overthinking. There's also the practice of being aware of your emotions. Overthinking often arises when we try to suppress or avoid uncomfortable feelings. But Buddhism teaches us that all emotions are temporary. Instead of pushing them away or getting caught up in them, simply feel them and let them pass. When you allow yourself to fully experience an emotion without judgment, it loses its power over you. Over time, you'll begin to notice that emotions are like waves. They rise and fall, but they don't last forever. The key to ending overthinking lies in understanding that you are not your thoughts. Thoughts are like clouds passing through the sky. They come and go, but you, the sky, remain unchanged. When you stop identifying with every thought that arises, you free yourself from the cycle of overthinking. You begin to realize that your true nature is calm, peaceful, and ever-present. It's like a clear sky, always there, even when the clouds appear. So, what happens when you apply these Buddhist techniques to your daily life? You stop living in your head. You stop being controlled by the endless chatter of the mind. You stop letting your worries dictate your actions. Instead, you become present, grounded, and aware of the world around you. The more you practice, the less overthinking has a hold on you. Your mind becomes a tool, not a prison. But remember, the journey doesn't end here. There will always be moments when the mind tries to pull you back into overthinking. But with practice, you'll learn to recognize when it's happening and gently bring yourself back to the present. Over time, you'll find that the space between thought and awareness becomes shorter and shorter until you're no longer caught in the cycle at all. You'll find peace not by fighting your thoughts, but by letting them pass naturally. In the end, the most important lesson is this. The mind, like the river, is constantly flowing. It's not about stopping the flow, it's about learning how to flow with it. Overthinking doesn't have to control you. With patience, practice, and the wisdom of Buddhism, you can learn to live in harmony with your mind and let go of the constant need to control, to analyze, and to worry. The more you practice, the more you'll experience true peace of mind, the kind that comes from simply being present. The path to inner peace and a life beyond overthinking. Imagine, after a long journey, you finally arrive at your destination. A place of calm, of quiet, where your mind no longer races, no longer tries to predict or control. It's simply still, just like the clear blue sky after a storm. This is what life can feel like once you free yourself from the grip of overthinking. It might seem far away, but let me tell you, it's within your reach. The key is to realize that overthinking, much like a storm, will always pass if you don't get caught in it. And the beauty is, you have the power to decide whether you want to stay caught or let the storm move on by. Throughout this journey, we've explored the nature of overthinking, why it happens, and how it clouds our minds. The more we look into it, the more we realize that it's not the situation itself that troubles us. It's our response to it. When we stop reacting to every single thought that pops into our heads, something incredible happens. We create space. Space to breathe, space to be present, space to truly live. We've learned how overthinking traps us in the past or future, preventing us from experiencing the present. But in reality, life only exists in the present moment. When we choose to live fully in this moment, without fear, without doubt, then we unlock a peace that cannot be disturbed. Overthinking fades away naturally, like a shadow when the sun rises. It's only when we get lost in the past or future that we let the shadow of doubt grow. But this isn't an easy process. Like any path worth walking, it requires dedication, patience, and practice. The path to inner peace isn't found in avoiding thoughts, but in learning how to let them pass without grabbing onto them. The thoughts will come, that's a guarantee. But just like clouds passing across the sky, they are transient, never lasting forever. It's when we stop clinging to them that we begin to experience the freedom that comes with simply letting go. Buddhism teaches us that suffering arises from attachment. We attach to thoughts, to memories, to worries about the future. We hold on to them as if they define us. But the truth is, they don't. You are not your thoughts. You are not your worries. You are not your past mistakes or your future fears. You are simply the awareness, the observer of all that comes and goes. And once you realize this, overthinking starts to lose its power over you. To break free from overthinking, you don't have to force your mind to be quiet. You don't need to fight your thoughts. All you need is to notice them without judgment, to see them as they are, just thoughts. Like leaves floating down a stream. You don't need to hold on to them, just let them flow by. It sounds simple, but the simplicity is the beauty. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes, and soon, your mind will no longer be a chaotic storm, but a calm, clear river. One of the most powerful tools we've discussed is mindfulness. Mindfulness isn't about stopping thoughts, but about becoming aware of the present moment without getting tangled in the web of thoughts. It's a practice of noticing your breath, the sensation of the ground beneath you, the sounds around you. The more you focus on the present, the less room there is for unnecessary thoughts to take up space in your mind. Meditation is another powerful practice that helps quiet the mind. Through meditation, you learn to sit with yourself in silence, observing your thoughts without attaching to them. It's like standing by a river, watching the water flow. Sometimes the water is calm, sometimes it's wild, but no matter how the water moves, you remain rooted in your spot, simply observing. This is how meditation helps us deal with overthinking. It teaches us how to observe our thoughts without getting lost in them. We also spoke about detachment. Detachment doesn't mean disconnecting from life or becoming cold. It simply means not being overly attached to outcomes, to expectations, or to the need for things to be a certain way. When you detach, you no longer feel controlled by your thoughts or emotions. You become free to experience life without the pressure of needing to control it all. It's like walking through a garden. When you aren't trying to rearrange every flower, you can simply enjoy its beauty. If you've been struggling with overthinking, remember that it's not a problem you need to fix. Overthinking is simply a habit, and like any habit, it can be changed. It takes practice, consistency, and a gentle approach. The more you practice mindfulness, the more you'll start to notice your thoughts without reacting to them. And as you begin to let go of the constant chatter in your mind, you'll experience a peace that comes from within. It's not something you find outside yourself. It's something you uncover when you stop searching for it. The path to inner peace is not about reaching a final destination where you'll never overthink again. It's about creating a space within where you can be free from the constant pull of your thoughts. It's about living in the present moment, letting go of the need to control everything, and simply allowing life to unfold as it will. When you let go of the need to overthink, you make room for clarity, for understanding, and for a deep sense of peace. As you walk this path, you will notice that the world around you starts to change. You'll begin to see things more clearly, to appreciate life as it is, not as you wish it to be. You'll find that the little things, like the warmth of the sun on your face or the sound of birds singing, become more meaningful. This is the beauty of living without the weight of overthinking. Everything becomes lighter, more peaceful, more present. Now, I want to remind you of something important. This journey is not a race. It's not about becoming perfect or reaching some ultimate state of stillness. It's about taking small steps every day to free yourself from the noise in your mind. Some days will be harder than others, and that's okay. Be kind to yourself. Overcoming overthinking is not a destination, but a practice. The more you practice, the more natural it will become. And finally, as we reach the end of this journey together, remember that the power to stop overthinking is already within you. It's not something you need to search for or acquire. It's simply about remembering who you truly are. You are the calm within the storm. You are the stillness in the midst of chaos. And when you embrace this truth, you'll find that overthinking no longer has control over you. You'll be free. Thank you for taking this journey with me. I hope these words have helped you understand how to break free from the trap of overthinking and find the peace that lies within you. Please, share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Let us know how you plan to implement these practices into your life. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Wisdom Woven. Remember, peace is not something you find. It's something you create. And the power to create it is always within you.